It was a quiet Saturday evening, with the last light of the sunset fading over Sharpsburg. Jason Thompson pulled into his garage, stepping out of the car with his duffel bag, briefcase, and laptop in hand. He didn't bother calling out for his wife, Emma. He knew she wasn't home, and frankly, he was relieved. Inside, Jason dropped his things in the living room and loosened his shirt, finally back from a regional meeting in Pittsburgh. He wasn't a manager, just the top systems analyst forced to attend because his supervisor didn't understand computers. He had told Emma he'd be home Monday, making up some excuse about seminars, but in truth, he didn't want to come back early. Their relationship had grown tense, and he needed some time to himself. After a quick shower, he changed into jeans and a polo, grabbed some leftovers from the fridge, and had a beer. He spent the rest of the night flipping through the local paper, though his mind was elsewhere, caught in the middle of a personal crisis he couldn't quite shake. By midnight, he was cleaning the kitchen, delaying the inevitable. Finally, he put on a jacket, sent a quick email from his laptop, and left the house, driving away as the garage door closed behind him. At 7:37 a.m. the next morning, Sharpsburg's emergency line picked up a call. "Emergency. What's your emergency?" the operator asked. "I need the police." "I think something bad happened," a young woman said, her voice trembling. "Where are you?" "I'm at a payphone near George Washington Park," she answered, her voice shaky. "There's a car with the doors open and lights on, and there's blood. Is anyone hurt?" "Do we need an ambulance?" "I didn't see anyone. I was too scared to stick around. I ran here to call." "You did the right thing. Officers are on their way." "Can you wait for them?" "No, I'm leaving." "What if they come after me?" she replied, panicking, and hung up. The operator sighed, hoping this wasn't a false alarm. Later that afternoon, Detective Andrew Davis arrived at the Thompson house. As he got out of his car, a blonde woman pulled into the driveway, suitcase in hand. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson?" Davis asked, approaching her. The woman turned. "I'm Emma Thompson." "Who are you?" "I'm Detective Andrew Davis with the Sharpsburg police. We're trying to locate your husband, Jason Thompson. His car was found abandoned at George Washington Park this morning." Emma frowned. "That's impossible. Jason's in Pittsburgh. He leaves his car at the airport. We're sure it's his car. The plate and VIN match," Davis insisted. "If that's true, it must have been stolen." "I talked to him yesterday morning," she said, pulling out her phone. She dialed his number, but instead of Jason answering, a phone rang in Davis's pocket. He answered. "Hello, Mrs. Thompson." Her eyes widened. "How do you have Jason's phone?" "It was found in his car. I can't return it. It's evidence in a possible crime." Emma's concern deepened. "Crime? What happened?" "We found his car with the doors open and a bullet hole. We need to find him, to rule him out as a victim or suspect." "Can you call his hotel?" Shaken, Emma nodded. "Yeah, I'll call. The number's in my address book. He always stays at the same Holiday Inn," Emma said, her voice barely masking her anxiety. She ushered Detective Davis into the kitchen, a room that seemed to be a haven of domestic normalcy in the middle of this chaos. Emma's hands moved quickly as she searched through an old address book she kept in a drawer. The detective followed her, taking in the neatly arranged kitchen that was now filled with tension. After finding the hotel number, Emma dialed and spoke urgently to the person on the other end. Her face grew more troubled with each passing second as she listened to the response. When she hung up, she turned to Davis with a puzzled look. "The hotel says they haven't seen Jason. His briefcase and laptop are right here in the living room. I don't understand what's happening." Davis's brow furrowed as he contemplated the situation. "I'm going to need a search warrant for the Thompson house," he said, pulling out his phone. He stepped into the hallway to make the call, his voice serious. "Dave, it's Pete. We have a situation with Jason Thompson. We need a search warrant immediately to determine whether he's a victim or a suspect. Get it here as soon as you can." Emma stood in the kitchen, her expression a mixture of confusion and frustration. She began pacing back and forth, her anxiety palpable. When Davis returned, she was clearly on edge. "A search warrant?" she exclaimed, her voice rising in panic. "Why do you need one?" "Just find my husband." "I don't care about procedures right now." Davis sat down at the kitchen table, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. "I understand this is upsetting, Mrs. Thompson, but I have to follow protocol. If your husband is involved in something illegal, we need to make sure any evidence is legally obtained so it can be used properly." Emma's frustration boiled over. "Illegal? Jason isn't involved in anything like that. He works with computers. He's not a criminal. Then why did he come back early and without telling you?" Davis pressed, noting how her agitation seemed to be growing. Emma's face went ashen, and she seemed to struggle for control. "I don't know why he came back early. He can't be." Her voice trailed off as she realized the gravity of the situation. Her hands were shaking, and her eyes filled with tears. "You have to find him. What if something's happened to him? What if he's hurt somewhere?" Davis softened his tone, trying to provide some reassurance amidst the growing tension. "We don't have all the details yet, Mrs. Thompson. We're doing everything possible to locate him. All our officers are on the lookout. In the meantime, why don't you make some coffee while we wait for the search warrant? It might help you feel a bit more grounded." Emma seemed to grasp at the suggestion as a small comfort. She moved mechanically to the counter, setting up the coffee maker. The mundane task seemed to offer a temporary distraction from her mounting worry. As the coffee brewed, Davis continued, "While we wait, I need to get some details about your recent activities. Can you tell me what you were doing over the past 48 hours? They settled at the kitchen table, each with a cup of coffee. Emma began to recount her weekend, her voice steady but tinged with anxiety. "Saturday morning, I did some chores around the house. Jason called me from Pittsburgh around 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon. He was apologizing for not being home. After that, I went out shopping until around 4:30. When I got back, I made dinner, then went to a friend's house around 7:30 and stayed the night. I didn't come home until this afternoon, around 2, as Emma spoke. Her anxiety was evident. Her hands clenched into fists, and her gaze was fixed on the floor. Davis noted her distress but continued taking detailed notes. Once Emma finished, Davis closed his notebook and said, "We may need more details as the investigation progresses, but this will suffice for now. Be prepared to provide additional information if needed." Detective Benjamin Murphy arrived shortly with a search warrant and 2 forensic technicians. They began a meticulous search of the Thompson home, including the garage and both cars parked outside. Emma, clearly distressed, was asked to stay out of the way while they worked. The search lasted about an hour, during which the forensic team combed through every nook and cranny. They decided to take only Jason's briefcase, laptop, and DNA samples for now. The laptop, however, was password protected. Davis asked Emma for the password, and she gave him hopeful advice. It used to be his first and last name with his birth year, Trimark 1971. "Try that," Davis typed in the password, but it didn't work. He tried several variations but still faced the same issue. "Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson. Our techs will figure it out," he assured her. The items were loaded into the forensic van, and Davis resumed his questioning. "Before I head out, do you have any recent photos of your husband? We need a good headshot and a full-length photo." Emma quickly retrieved a photo album from the living room. They reviewed the pictures together, and Davis selected a group photo and a headshot. "These will be very helpful," he said. "Is the man in the group photo a relative?" Emma shook her head. "No, that's Ryan Mitchell, Jason's best friend from elementary school. Jason doesn't have any close relatives nearby." Davis thanked her and headed back to the garage to oversee the search. As Emma sat at the kitchen table, her eyes brimming with tears, Davis felt a pang of sympathy. Her husband was missing, and the situation was increasingly troubling. The discovery of bloodstains on the gas and brake pedals of Emma's car only added to the growing complexity of the case. The car was towed for further analysis, and Emma remained at the table, feeling the weight of uncertainty and fear. As the forensic technicians packed up, Detective Davis and his partner, Detective Benjamin Murphy, discussed the case near the side door. Davis voiced his concern. "What do you think of Mrs. Thompson?" "I'm not entirely convinced, especially with the blood in her car," Murphy nodded. "She appeared genuinely worried, but it's hard to say for sure. We shouldn't jump to conclusions. Let's see her reaction when we tell her about the blood and the car being towed," Davis decided. They knocked and entered the kitchen, catching Emma off guard as she was on the phone. She ended the call quickly. "You're back." "I thought you were done," Emma said. Looking anxious, Davis said, "We found blood smears on the pedals of your car. We're towing it for a thorough inspection." "I hope that's okay." Emma looked stunned. "Blood in my car? I didn't see any. We need to find out how it got there." "We'll also need the shoes you wore today," Davis explained. Emma, now visibly distressed, handed over her shoes and sank into a chair, sobbing. The detectives noted her reaction and decided to leave her for now. As they prepared to go, Davis asked Murphy, "What's your take? Is she genuinely concerned, or is she acting?" Benjamin Murphy shrugged. "She seems sincere, but if the blood is Jason's, she might be involved. We should talk to their friends and neighbors and find out why he came back early." Davis bagged the shoes as evidence, and they drove back to the station, each lost in thought. The rest of their shift was spent on reports. The next morning, Andrew and Dave arrived early, eager to continue their investigation. They reviewed forensic and medical examiner reports, which took over an hour. Andrew commented, "The reports are consistent, but we need to dig deeper. Let's check Jason's computer and talk to his lawyer and colleagues." They visited Jason's lawyer, Christopher Parker, who confirmed the emails were original. With that confirmation, they headed to ABC Industrial. At Jason's workplace, they were led to his supervisor, who said Jason had no weekend events and was expected back Friday night. The supervisor noted Jason had been brooding lately but didn't mention any specific problems. Thanking the supervisor, the detectives returned to their car, feeling they were making progress. By late morning, back at the office, they reviewed preliminary DNA results and a forensic report that included a mysterious box with wires. Confident in their findings, they decided to revisit Emma Thompson. Arriving around 3 p.m., they didn't call ahead. Emma seemed startled and anxious to see them. "Detectives, have you found my husband?" "I've been calling for updates," she said. Davis replied, "We've made some progress and need to ask you a few more questions." Emma, looking embarrassed, invited them in. In the living room, Murphy asked, "Can you tell us about your relationship with Ryan Mitchell?" Emma turned pale. "Ryan is just Jason's friend. He's not involved with me," Davis asked calmly. "Are you having an affair with Ryan Mitchell?" Emma's face went even paler. "Absolutely not." Emma was stunned when Detective Murphy asked if she had an affair with Ryan Mitchell. "How can you ask me that?" she protested. Detective Murphy stood up, explaining, "We need you to come to the station for a formal statement." Emma panicked. "What? Am I under arrest?" "Why do I have to go?" "You're not under arrest," Davis reassured her. "We just need an official statement." "You can have a lawyer if you want," Emma quickly replied. "I don't need a lawyer. I'll come to the station. I'll do whatever it takes to help find Jason." At the station, Emma was led into a dim interrogation room designed to unsettle. "We'll ask you to wait here while we gather our documents." "Are you sure you don't want a lawyer?" Davis offered again. She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. As Davis left, he ensured the cameras were rolling. "I want a good recording of everything said," he told his commanding officer. "I think we're on the right track." Davis and Murphy then took a break at a coffee shop to discuss the case and plan their interrogation strategy. Meanwhile, a volunteer at Crime Stoppers took a call. The caller, an older man, asked if he could get money immediately for his tip. He was frustrated, saying he needed juice, not food. He then reported seeing someone throw a rifle and 2 shovels into the river under the 3rd Street Bridge on Sunday morning. The volunteer noted the details and promised the caller a code number to check back later. The information was passed to the police, and a diver quickly recovered the weapon and shovels. The weapon was linked to the George Washington Park crime scene. The detectives received the reports and headed back to the station. Murphy and Davis reviewed the findings and decided to split up. Murphy would interrogate Emma, while Davis would bring in Ryan Mitchell for questioning. In the interrogation room, Emma sat calmly. Murphy began, "This room is monitored and recorded. Are you having an affair with Ryan Mitchell?" Emma's shoulders slumped, and she whispered, "Yes." Murphy revealed evidence from Jason's laptop, including plans for divorce due to infidelity. He also showed a tracker Jason had placed in Emma's car. Jason knew for weeks and wanted a divorce, Murphy said. Emma was shocked and tearful. Murphy continued, "The preliminary DNA results show the blood in the park is Jason's. We found the weapon used, which is connected to your lover. Ryan didn't do anything to Jason," Emma insisted, clearly distressed. Detective Murphy responded, "We found your husband's blood in your car and on your shoes. My partner is picking up Mr. Mitchell now. Whoever provides information about Jason's whereabouts will get a better deal." Emma, visibly shaken, barely looked at the blood test reports Murphy handed her. "Jason can't be dead. I love him. I need him," she sobbed. "Ryan will tell you the same. We had nothing to do with it." Murphy left Emma to compose herself, informing her, "There's a high probability your husband is dead based on the medical examiner's report. I'll leave you alone for a bit to think." He placed the reports on his desk and headed to the break room, while his commanding officer monitored Emma via camera. Detective Davis drove to Ryan Mitchell's house and was greeted by Mitchell, who appeared surprised by the police presence. "How can I help you?" Mitchell asked. Davis introduced himself and explained the situation. "We need you at the station for questioning." "Mrs. Thompson is already there." Mitchell, though confused, complied. During the drive, Davis inquired about Mitchell's relationship with Emma. Mitchell responded, "She's just Jason's wife to me." When asked about his occupation, Mitchell mentioned he ran a landscaping company. At the station, Mitchell was placed in an interrogation room next to Emma's. Despite initially denying the affair, Mitchell eventually confessed after being confronted with evidence. He admitted the affair had lasted months but insisted neither he nor Emma harmed Jason. Mitchell speculated that Jason might have reacted violently or hired someone to frame them. Davis countered, "We have the weapon and a witness described you and your car." Mitchell became agitated, revealing past animosity with Jason but denying involvement. He explained, "Jason and I have a history. I was scared of him, but I couldn't resist the affair." Davis warned Mitchell that affairs often lead to serious crimes and urged him to confess for leniency. Ryan, still denying involvement, said, "Maybe Emma did something, but I don't know." Davis then discovered that the shovels found in the river were from Mitchell's landscaping. He presented the evidence to the district attorney, who agreed that, despite the lack of a body, the evidence was sufficient to press charges. Half an hour later, Emma Thompson and Ryan Mitchell were charged with Jason Thompson homicide. As their Miranda rights were read, they maintained their innocence. After the arraignment, they were fingerprinted and photographed, neither needing reminders and not to smile. Led back to their cells, Emma asked Ryan anxiously, "What are we going to do? They can't believe we did anything to Jason, can they?" Ryan suggested, "We need our own lawyers, or maybe share one to save money. But this doesn't make sense. I think Jason set us up." Emma was shocked. Why would Jason go to such extremes? Ryan recounted a past incident involving a girlfriend of Jason's, hinting at Jason's volatile nature. Emma, still in disbelief, said, "I don't know how he found out. We were careful and only met when he was out of town. I regret betraying him. Even if he's not dead, I want a divorce." Ryan told her, "You knew the risks. You were aware of the consequences." Emma suggested calling Christopher Parker, their attorney, to represent them. However, Parker declined due to his involvement in Jason's divorce and recommended Oliver Turner instead. Turner arrived later, briefly reviewed the charges, and reassured them about the bail process. Turner explained, bail will likely be set at $100,000 each, but you only need 10% or $10,000 cash for the bail bond. They agreed to manage it. Turner informed them they'd be arraigned the next morning and advised them to prepare to spend the night in jail. Both clients reacted poorly. Turner promised to negotiate with the district attorney to unseal evidence and better understand their case. They spent a restless night in jail with inadequate food and noisy cellmates. The next morning, despite their disheveled appearance, they entered pleas of not guilty. Bail was set at $100,000. Ryan, owning property and a business, quickly secured a $10,000 bond and was released by early afternoon. Emma, lacking funds and home ownership, had to call her parents for help. After persuasion, they provided the $10,000, but the delay meant Emma spent another night in jail. The following day, Emma was released, went home, showered, and ignored calls. The next month flew by. Emma discovered Jason had withdrawn money from their account to protect his share before the divorce. She received divorce papers but was unsure of Jason's actions. Emma and Ryan met with Oliver Turner several times. Turner reviewed the evidence and planned to argue for dismissal due to the lack of body or witness. He suggested hiring a private investigator to check if Jason had staged his own disappearance. Ryan agreed, but Emma suspected a carjacking gone wrong. The investigator found nothing substantial. The tipster who reported the discarded rifle and shovels remained unidentified and did not follow up. Tensions between Emma and Ryan grew, with Ryan suggesting they continue their affair. Emma refused, blaming him for her predicament. Emma and Ryan, now facing serious charges, were distraught and isolated from each other, their once passionate affair now a mere shadow of its former self. They only communicated through their lawyer, Oliver Turner, and kept their distance otherwise. A month had passed since their release, and the weight of the trial was becoming unbearable. Turner had arranged a critical meeting with District Attorney Nathan Johnson, hoping for a breakthrough. Emma and Ryan were desperate for any good news, as their lives had been upended by the accusations and the ongoing investigation into Jason Thompson's disappearance. The meeting with Johnson took place in a sterile, unadorned conference room. Johnson, surprisingly young and stylish, began by addressing Emma and Ryan with a calm but firm demeanor. He explained that despite the absence of Jason Thompson's body, the evidence against them had solidified. Johnson offered a plea deal of 8 to 12 years for a guilty plea to second-degree homicide. This offer was based on new evidence that had come to light. Emma and Ryan were taken aback. The news hit them like a sledgehammer, and their protests of innocence filled the room. Emma, tears streaming down her face, demanded to know why Johnson was making such an offer. Ryan, equally stunned, shouted his denials, claiming their innocence and questioning the legitimacy of the evidence presented. Johnson calmly outlined the new evidence. DNA from blood found on Emma's car matched Jason Thompson, and black polyethylene found under Jason's car was traced back to Ryan's landscaping business. The room fell silent as Emma's frustration turned to despair. She turned to Ryan, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "Ryan, what have you done?" she accused, her eyes wide with shock. Ryan, defensive and frustrated, shot back, "You know I had nothing to do with it. You were with me when it happened." "I didn't do anything." He was visibly agitated, his voice rising in a mixture of anger and fear. Turner, trying to manage the escalating tension, stepped in to calm both clients. He addressed Johnson with a polite but firm tone, attempting to defuse the situation. "Excuse my clients. They are understandably shocked by the developments. We were hoping for a different outcome." "Your statement has caught them off guard," Johnson, with a slight smirk, replied. "I understand their reaction. However, the evidence we have is substantial, and we are confident it supports the case against them. The medical examiner's report confirms that the victim lost too much blood to have survived, and the crime scene indicates that he was dragged from a vehicle and shot multiple times." Turner, despite his own doubts about his client's innocence, remained committed to defending them. He advised Emma and Ryan to remain calm and to prepare for a robust defense. "We'll need to reject this plea deal and prepare for trial," Turner said, his tone resolute. "I'll work on building our defense strategy and addressing the evidence against you." In the months leading up to the trial, Turner reviewed the evidence thoroughly and prepared for the courtroom battle. The trial began on a Monday morning, with Judge Christopher Adams presiding over the case. Turner, positioned between Emma and Ryan, tried to manage their anxiety and the tension that crackled in the courtroom. He had considered recommending separate lawyers for each client, but their financial situation made it impractical. District Attorney Nathan Johnson delivered his opening statement with confidence and clarity. He detailed the prosecution's case, emphasizing the affair between Emma and Ryan, Jason Thompson, discovery of this affair, and the violent consequences that followed. Johnson described how Jason had tracked his wife's movements, used emails to document his suspicions, and ultimately confronted them, leading to his murder. He revealed that despite the lack of a body, forensic evidence, including blood on Ryan's car and Emma's shoes, along with the recovered weapon and shovels, placed them at the scene. Emma, overwhelmed by the graphic details, lost her composure. Her sobs and cries filled the courtroom, prompting Judge Adams to call for a brief recess to restore order. Johnson continued with his case, presenting evidence and witness testimony that reinforced the prosecution's theory. The first witness, a computer expert, testified about the tracking device and emails that Jason used to monitor Emma and Ryan. The expert's testimony highlighted the precision of the tracking and the incriminating nature of the evidence, which made Emma squirm and Ryan appear detached. Following an extended lunch break, the trial resumed with testimonies from emergency responders who had discovered Jason's abandoned car. Their factual, straightforward accounts added to the mounting evidence against Emma and Ryan. As the trial progressed, the pressure on Emma and Ryan intensified. They clung to the hope that their defense would uncover a flaw in the prosecution's case, but the evidence against them was formidable. The trial continued, with each side presenting their arguments and evidence, setting the stage for a dramatic legal confrontation that would determine their fates. The intensity of the trial surged as the courtroom was presented with detailed and graphic photographs of the crime scene. These images depicted a grim tableau of bullet holes, blood stains, and drag marks, laying bare the violent nature of the crime. The medical examiner took the stand and provided a harrowing account of Jason Thompson's injuries, estimating that he had lost between 3 to 4 pints of blood. The examiner described blood jets and severe arterial damage, concluding that Jason was likely in a state of near death when the injuries were inflicted. The stark details proved too much for Emma Thompson, who, overwhelmed with grief, cried out, "No, Jason can't be dead." Her anguished outburst prompted Judge Christopher Adams to call for a recess, adjourning the trial until the following morning to restore order. The trial resumed with the medical expert continuing his testimony. Defense attorney Oliver Turner scrutinized the examiner's findings, seeking to undermine the prosecution's portrayal of a deliberate and execution-like killing. Turner questioned whether the estimated blood loss could have been less, suggesting that the figure of 3 to 4 pints might be exaggerated depending on how the blood had dispersed. He also inquired whether immediate medical intervention could have altered the outcome, although the examiner conceded that while unlikely, it was not entirely out of the realm of possibility. Turner's aim was to challenge the prosecution's narrative by emphasizing the uncertainty in the blood loss estimates. Following this testimony, a forensic scientist specializing in weapons and ammunition provided insights into the 2 bullets recovered from the crime scene. One bullet, found in the car seat, was deformed, while the other, discovered in a pile of firewood, was intact and matched the weapon previously identified. Turner probed whether the bullets had been examined for traces of bone or flesh. The technician explained that any such traces would likely have been cleaned off by the layers of padding and fabric through which the bullets passed. He noted that the bullets had full metal jackets, typical of military ammunition, which contributed both to the potential severity of the wounds and to the difficulty of tracing the weapon's origin. Despite this, Turner confirmed that no fingerprints or DNA from the defendants were found on the weapon or casings, as any such evidence would have been wiped clean. Another technician testified about the shovels found near the river, which were branded with Mitchell's Landscaping. Although no fingerprints or DNA were recovered from these shovels, the fact that 14 identical shovels were found at Mitchell's business was noted. Turner's cross-examination of this witness yielded no significant new information, as the forensic evidence was largely consistent with the prosecution's case. The day continued with testimony from the technician who found blood in Ryan Mitchell's car. The technician admitted that the blood could have been planted by a third party, offering a minor victory for the defense. However, complications arose with testimony regarding blood found in Emma Thompson's car and on her right shoe. Although the technician could not definitively determine if the blood was transferred from the shoe to the gas pedal or vice versa, Turner hoped this ambiguity might benefit Emma's defense. As the prosecution's witnesses concluded their testimonies, the focus shifted to the defense's evidence presentation on the third morning of the trial. Local newspapers speculated that the defense would face significant challenges due to the prosecution's strong evidence. They suggested that without Jason Thompson's body, securing a conviction might be difficult, and questioned the defense's strategy of casting doubt on whether Jason was truly dead. Oliver Turner called Dr. Calvin, a blood analysis expert, to the stand. Dr. Calvin testified that the blood evidence might have been inadequately collected and analyzed. He argued that blood-soaked soil could have provided a more accurate estimate of blood loss, and suggested that as little as 1.5 pints of blood could have created the observed scene. His testimony aimed to undermine the prosecution's claims about the severity of the blood loss. Ryan Mitchell then took the stand, passionately asserting his innocence and proposing a theory that Jason Thompson might have orchestrated his own disappearance to frame him. Mitchell claimed he had never owned a weapon and suggested that the shovels found could have been stolen from his work sites. Turner kept Mitchell's testimony concise, focusing on challenging the prosecution's narrative. During cross-examination, Nathan Johnson questioned Ryan's theory, asking why Jason would go through the trouble of setting up his own homicide. Ryan recounted a past incident in high school when Jason had threatened him after Ryan dated Jason's girlfriend. Johnson pressed further, questioning if Jason would have chosen to frame Ryan instead of targeting him directly. The trial continued with mounting tension as both sides presented their cases, and the jury prepared to deliberate on the complex and emotionally charged evidence. Ryan Mitchell's testimony did not go as planned. When asked why he thought Jason Thompson might have staged his own homicide, Ryan stumbled, unable to provide a coherent answer. He muttered that his physical advantage over Jason would have prevented a direct confrontation. The prosecutor, seizing the opportunity, pressed further. "So, you believe you could intimidate your friend into taking his own life? Is that why you felt comfortable pursuing his wife?" The prosecutor's tone was accusatory, and his comments cut to the heart of the case. "Your actions show a narcissistic personality, someone who feels entitled to any woman and who can disregard the bonds of friendship," he continued, launching a personal attack on Ryan's character. Oliver Turner, defending Ryan, objected, arguing that the prosecutor was overstepping by effectively testifying rather than asking questions. Judge Christopher Adams agreed with Turner's objection and instructed the jury to disregard the prosecutor's last statements. Despite this, the damage was done. Ryan, visibly agitated, left the stand without offering further comments. Turner recognized that Ryan's testimony had inadvertently harmed their case and hoped that Emma's testimony might counterbalance the negative impression left by Ryan. Emma Thompson took the stand, appearing more composed than Ryan. She firmly denied any involvement in the attack on her husband, suggesting instead that Jason might have been the victim of a carjacking. Turner chose not to press further on cross-examination, hoping Emma's demeanor and clear denial would be persuasive. However, the prosecutor's questions were unrelenting. He asked Emma about her whereabouts between midnight on Saturday and 2 p.m. on Sunday. Emma, clearly embarrassed, explained, "I was with Ryan Mitchell at his house from 8 p.m. Saturday until about 1:30 p.m. Sunday." The prosecutor, sensing an opportunity, pressed for details. "You didn't quite answer the question. What were you doing from midnight to Sunday?" Emma, flustered, admitted, "I was in Ryan's bedroom at midnight. We were, engaged in intimate activities." She continued to describe their activities, revealing that their encounters lasted until after 1 a.m., and they then slept until about 5:45 a.m. The prosecutor pressed further, asking if Ryan was in bed when she woke up. Emma confirmed he was, and they had another intimate encounter before getting up at 11 a.m. The prosecutor, seeing the jury's reaction, clarified, "So you woke him up at 6:30 a.m. to continue your activities?" Emma, red-faced and embarrassed, replied, "No, he was already ready." The prosecutor pressed on, asking Emma to describe exactly how she woke him up. Emma, now visibly distressed, responded, "I just started engaging with him." The prosecutor delivered the final blow with a pointed question. "You've said you love your husband. Is that true?" When Emma affirmed her love, he continued, "So, you spent the night with his best friend while he was suffering and possibly taking his own life. How can we believe you weren't involved in his demise?" Emma could only manage quiet tears in response, unable to provide a convincing answer. Judge Adams intervened to end Emma's suffering and called for a lunch recess. During the recess, Emma joined Oliver Turner for a somber lunch. Turner, an experienced attorney, cautioned that the case could still go either way but privately expressed his pessimism. The performance of both clients on the witness stand had not helped their case. As the afternoon session commenced, Turner announced there were no more defense witnesses. Both attorneys began preparing their closing statements. The prosecutor's closing argument was forceful, emphasizing the overwhelming evidence against the defendants and painting a vivid picture of their alleged crime. He argued that the defendants' affair and the forensic evidence left no doubt of their guilt. On the other hand, Oliver Turner stressed the circumstantial nature of the evidence, the absence of a body, and the lack of a clear motive. He urged the jury to focus on the reasonable doubt present in the case. By 4 p.m., the jury began their deliberations. They worked through the evening, deciding to return the next morning for further deliberation. Emma and Ryan waited anxiously at Oliver Turner's office, putting aside their differences in a tense hope for acquittal. The following day, at 3:30 p.m., the long-awaited call came. The jury had reached a verdict. Emma's parents, who had traveled to town for the trial, were present at the courthouse. The verdict was announced swiftly: guilty of second-degree homicide. Emma burst into tears, her cries echoing through the courtroom, while Ryan, overcome with frustration, pounded his fist. They were handcuffed and taken into custody, with Emma managing a brief, tearful moment with her parents, proclaiming her innocence once again. The week between conviction and sentencing was a somber period. Emma's parents visited her daily, offering emotional support, while Ryan received a single visit from a cousin. At sentencing, both Emma and Ryan were given 15 years to life in prison. Oliver Turner promised to review the case records for potential grounds for an appeal, though his optimism was waning. Within 3 days, Emma and Ryan were transferred to state prison. Emma was assigned to a facility with a relatively good reputation, while Ryan was sent to a prison known for its history of riots and unrest. As media attention dwindled, Emma Thompson and Ryan Mitchell faded from the public eye. Months later, Oliver Turner and District Attorney Nathan Johnson met for a drink. Reflecting on the case, Turner expressed his surprise at the convictions, believing that the defendants' consistent stories suggested innocence. Johnson, however, was more pragmatic. "The jury didn't believe them," he said. "I try not to take these cases personally unless they involve particularly heinous crimes or children. This case wasn't the worst, but it didn't generate much sympathy for the defendants." A year after the convictions, news reports highlighted a major disturbance at Ryan Mitchell's prison. During a riot, Ryan had been stabbed and sustained a collapsed lung. He was in serious condition but was expected to survive. Despite this setback, the case continued to fade from public consciousness. 18 months after the trial, Oliver Turner, now rarely thinking about the case, was working quietly in his New York office. On a calm Wednesday morning, the receptionist received a FedEx package. It was from the Innocence Project, sparking a new chapter in a case that had long seemed closed. Inside the FedEx package were a DVD, a sealed biohazard bag, and a multi-page letter. The receptionist, intrigued by the contents, decided to call Marcus Stewart, a young lawyer at the Innocence Project. Marcus, who had been working with the organization for a year and had a passion for helping those wrongfully convicted, took the package to his office for closer examination. Marcus, dressed casually in a polo shirt and jeans, settled at his desk with the package. He first examined the letter, which was addressed to the Innocence Project. The letter began, "Regarding the convictions of Emma Thompson and Ryan Mitchell, I don't know where to begin, so I'll start at the beginning. My name is not important, but the information I have could change the lives of the 2 convicted and 5 others, including me." The writer recounted a story that began around 15 months ago, when he hired a man named Jason through an ad for a computer-literate person. Jason, who was exceptionally skilled in business networks, quickly became a valuable asset to the writer's business. Despite being new in town and staying in a basement room provided by the writer, Jason's talents and dedication led to significant business growth. The writer mentioned that their professional relationship had evolved into a deep personal connection, with Jason becoming a father figure to the writer's young son. However, the writer sensed something troubled Jason from the start. One day, Jason confessed that he was running from a failed marriage and had contemplated severe actions due to his wife's betrayal. This confession brought them closer, and their relationship blossomed into a loving family unit. Despite this, the writer still felt Jason was hiding something. 4 days prior, Jason collapsed at work and was diagnosed with a heart condition that required surgery. While recovering in a private room, Jason shared a harrowing story with the writer, which he wanted to reveal before his surgery in case he did not survive. The letter detailed Jason's troubled past, including his discovery of a bruise on his wife Emma, which led him to suspect infidelity. After installing a tracking device on Emma's car, Jason confirmed her affair with Ryan Mitchell, leading to his deep emotional distress. Jason's plan for revenge was meticulous and chilling. He had initially considered a violent solution but ultimately decided to frame Emma and Ryan for his supposed murder. He created a complex scene in a park near Ryan's house, using a combination of blood, firewood, and other materials to simulate a violent crime scene. He even went so far as to draw his own blood to make the scene more convincing and use tracking devices and false reports to mislead the authorities. The letter concluded with instructions for the Innocence Project. It detailed how Jason had carefully planted evidence and used a fake identity to avoid detection. The writer planned to include a bloodstain with Jason's fingerprints in a New York Times newspaper to corroborate his claims and prove he was still alive. Jason, now using a new identity, wanted to ensure that Emma and Ryan were exonerated. At the end of the letter was a handwritten note. Jason came out of surgery in good condition. He wants me to fly to Seattle tomorrow to send this package. I hate to leave him, but it will ease his mind. We're expecting twins in about 3 months. Marcus Stewart, after reading the letter, examined the additional items in the package. The DVD was labeled "Photos taken in George Washington Park," and the sealed biohazard bag was marked "Fingerprints and DNA." The printed pages provided a detailed account of Jason's actions, and Marcus verified that the DNA matched that of Jason Thompson, while the fingerprints matched those found in the park. This evidence confirmed that the 2 convicted individuals were victims of a deception, with undeniable proof that Emma Thompson and Ryan Mitchell had been wrongfully convicted of a crime that never occurred. The Innocence Project and state authorities moved quickly. The state attorney general and governor expedited their release, and a week later, Emma and Ryan returned to the courtroom with Oliver Turner, their former attorney, and even District Attorney Nathan Johnson. State representatives were also present. The state attorney general offered a formal apology for the wrongful convictions and announced efforts to locate Jason Thompson, who would be held accountable for the financial costs incurred by the state. Ryan Mitchell, now visibly changed and humbled by his experience, expressed regret for his past arrogance and apologized to Emma. Emma, though emotionally drained, appeared indifferent, only wanting to leave with her parents. Both Oliver Turner and the district attorney acknowledged their own mistakes, vowing to be more diligent in future cases. Although no formal liability was found, Emma and Ryan each received $50,000 in compensation. Ryan, whose business had gone bankrupt and homes sold to cover legal fees, left town, expressing frustration that the compensation was only a fraction of his losses. Emma, worn out from the ordeal, agreed they deserved the money but left without saying goodbye. 2 weeks after their release was reported on cable news, a large envelope arrived at Oliver Turner's office. Inside was a note addressed to the attorney and a sealed envelope for Emma. Oliver delivered the letter to Emma at her apartment. After a brief conversation, he left her with the envelope, which she opened with trepidation. Recognizing Jason's handwriting, she read the letter. Emma, I apologize for the time you spent in jail. Your betrayal with Ryan drove me nearly insane. My new life and happiness have shown me that freeing you both was necessary for my own freedom. I know authorities will search for me, but I am confident in my new life with my new family. Good luck and goodbye. The letter fell from Emma's hand, shattering any remaining hope for reconciliation with Jason.